Hello, can you hear me? Great. It's so quiet from my end, so it's hard to tell. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Mayor Lauren McLean, and I'm here for our, what month is it these days? June listening session. And as you know, the last couple months have been virtual. This month, we decided to try to do a hybrid event where, like our city council meetings, I would talk with people in the building or in the room and also virtually. But we got so many people interested in joining in person that what we decided to do this afternoon was I'd start things here and answer questions that we receive virtually and that we received in advance for the first half hour max. And then I'd spend my second half hour just head right outside to talk with anybody that's here that wanted to come in and talk. So that way we can protect everybody's health, follow physical distancing, social distancing protocols, and I get to hear from as many people as possible. And then, so with that, I'll just say a couple things to start off. We have many people that have been emailing us about the budget, about our police department, about COVID and concerns about a rise in cases. And I want all of you to know that we will have multiple multiple sessions where we work on budget, and we'll get into more detail on that. And this is a time where we've got to have a conversation as a community about safety and race and the concerns the public has. And we're welcoming a new chief very soon on July 1st. And I know council wants to have that conversation as well. And so we're looking at, in partnership with Inclusive Idaho, other organizations and leaders, how we can have a constructive dialogue to move us all forward. And then also tomorrow I'll have an update. It's my weekly Thursday update on COVID cases. But yes, we are seeing a rise of cases in Ada County, and we are watching those. I'm talking with health professionals. There are some establishments downtown that have closed, and we're like trying to decide how best to protect public health and keep everyone back to work as much as and as often as possible. And like, so talking with hospitals about the information that they have inside the health district about what they're seeing, and other professionals about what we ought to do. So know that we're taking it seriously. The governor and others have said as we reopen, it's so important to be vigilant about physical distancing and masking if we want to stay open. And I encourage everyone to do that. And with that, I'm more than happy. Lana is here as always. Oh, and I didn't say thank you to Fran for being here as an ASL interpreter to help make this more accessible for everyone. And Lana from the city of Boise is here to monitor and let me know what questions have been asked that I can respond to. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Mayor. Hi, everyone. Similar to what we've done in previous sessions, I am monitoring both the YouTube channel and also questions that are coming in through our website. So if you have any questions, please feel free to still submit them. I will be asking them as they come in. So to get started, Mayor Matthew from the Central Bench is asking about the property tax proposal that went in front of council yesterday. Can you talk about what, if any, service impacts the tax freeze will have on the community?
Sure. Thanks, Matthew. And I forgot that we asked everyone to share their neighborhood. So I'm so glad that you did that. It's great to hear the first question from someone on the Central Bench. Yes, as you saw, I proposed and council agreed that we would take a 0% property tax increase in this coming year. And we did that recognizing that's a way that we can help provide some relief to residents who are feeling the impacts of housing affordability, rising assessments, and of course the economic struggles that our community is experiencing, like communities around the country. Right now, it took us a while to make the announcement because I wanted to make sure, council wanted to make sure that we were able to do this in a smart way. The city, and so some of the principles that I looked to and asked staff to keep track of were ensuring that we maintain our strong fiscal status and we're smart about the money we're saving, setting aside, or not taking this year and the impacts that would have in the long run. The services that are incredibly important that we provide to our community. the investments that we need to make to spur the economy as we all recover. So looking at all of this and what our staff has proposed, that typically every year the city sets aside a certain amount into a savings account for future parks development and other capital projects. I say parks as an example, but the capital improvement plan that we have that we fund projects against. And just by habit and historically, I should say, we've, as a council, and when I was on council, we do it, we'd set money into that account. So we would reduce the amount of money that we put for this coming year into the capital improvement plan account. However, we would propose that we also have set aside some money to cover the impacts of COVID if the city has them and they aren't reimbursed. So next year, if we don't spend all of that, 2.7 or so million dollars that we've held aside for COVID related costs, whatever we don't spend on COVID would make up for what we didn't set aside in the capital improvement plan right now. So that's where we get the first $2 million. And then we've proposed, we found some duplication of funding and efforts in My Clean Energy and Climate Accelerator programs and some work that Public Works through their energy budget was doing. So we were able to combine that budget and fund it through Public Works. And there is a strategic planning contingency, so an operating contingency. So money that we set aside for spending is in case we need it. Right now, we're saying we're going to set less of that aside so that we can provide the relief to property taxpayers. And we're doing it that way so that we don't have to cut services. Because we know that it's important to provide high quality services to our community as a foundation of strong neighborhoods. And we of course want to do that, to continue to do that, because now more than ever it's important. And also recognize that it's really important that we invest for the future so that we can recover more quickly and in more resilient ways in the long run. So we looked at all that together.
Thank you. Along the same vein around the budget, can you talk about what the rest of the budget process will look like for this year?
Sure. So we will have, this week on Tuesday was the night that we set the revenue numbers. So our budget staff now knows what the revenue will look like and is busy preparing the budget proposals to make the budget balance, because the budget has to balance. So on, I think it's June 26th, let me check. Yes, on June 26th, that budget book will be presented to council and the public. And so then you'll be able, it'll be online, just like last year's budget is online right now. You'll be able to look through that budget. On June 30th, we will have a council work session during the day. And there we go through the budget, and we'll hear from some different departments that have that need to present to us as well on their specific budgets. And then on that day, council members will make motions, finalize the budget that then will be the budget that the public comments on. And so between June 30th and then our meeting, which is on Tuesday, I think it's July 21st, will be the public hearing. We will have the budget out, finalized for public comment, have that hearing on the 21st, where then a vote is we vote on the budget, and then ultimately the budget is read. It's kind of a policy making procedure at 3 council meetings after that, and then certified. So in between now and then, in addition to seeing the budget book and having the opportunity to comment on it, there are different departments and long-term funding conversations that will be had at our various city council meetings.
Great, thank you. You briefly touched on this in your opening comments, but there are some questions around funding for the Boise Police Department. Andrew Ogden, also from the Central Bench, is asking, what are some data points that we use to determine how we set the police budget? He's specifically asking about the 20 million increase that is proposed right now.
Sure. Hi, Andrew, thanks for the question. So a couple of years ago, so in setting any budget, the finance staff looks at requests from each department and needs of each department. And over the years, the city has looked at the need for the number, like policing and the programs that we have in it within it, community policing and our liaison officers, our school resource officers, et cetera, but also the folks that are out doing traffic stops and other parts of policing, and looked at the size of our city as we've grown and likely the number of people that the department needs to have in order to provide the same level of service that we've had historically. And so it was several years ago, the department proposed, based on a study that was had, the number of new officers we need because we've grown so much. So every year, the department has tried to add to meet the long-term need by adding several officers each year. Many people right now are asking about defunding the police and asking about the policies of the police department. And we want to look at all of those policies and make good decisions. The time is ripe to have a conversation with a new chief, with the city council, myself, and the police department about how we can have the best policies in place to protect all of our residents and ensure that everyone in our community feels safe. And then there's also the conversation about how we invest more in social services, mental health services, parks and rec programs to support kids, to reduce the need or reduce the impact long-term of crime, because we know that when we invest early, we prevent problems in the long run. And I believe that actually Stacey Abrams said it great last weekend. She said, it's a false choice between funding and defunding a police department. I'm committed to public safety in this community, and I'm committed to having a dialogue with our new chief and the public and the department and the council about the priorities we have as a community, the organizations, neighborhoods, and programs we need to invest in the future, and what that looks like in terms of preventing problems, making sure that everyone in this community is safe or feels safe. To try to do that in this budget process that's just a couple weeks longer, I think does a disservice to the overall conversation that we've got to have as a community. And so look forward to opportunities beginning with the new chief on July 1st and moving forward to drill down, look hard at what we ought to be investing in, what policies need to be changed, and how we do it all together in as comprehensive a way as possible.
Thank you. A question from Donnie in Southwest Boise. Donnie is asking about the role of police officers in schools. Is that something you can speak to?
Sure. You know, Donnie, I'd love to be able to get more information to you on the role of police officers in schools. The school resource officer program exists. And, at one point, a former chief explained to me that they thought it was better to build relationships and know the students and to have officers there rather than having officers intervening when there's problems only. And I believe that it was built out of the community policing model to make sure that officers knew people in the community and know people in the schools to better understand what's going on. But I'm sure that there is a write-up that the department has that gives a nod to the history of the program, why we do it, and why the school districts have asked us to continue to partner with them, that we could get to you if you'd share with Lana, however it is that you communicated your question. If you shared your contact information, we could send that along.
Great, thank you. Now switching gears a little bit, Mark from Northwest Boise asked, could we reach out to the local tech community for a way to track the COVID-19 outbreak as a collective?
Oh, interesting question, Mark. There are some cities that have done that, right? They've developed apps and they're asking people to punch in. I'm looking at Fran doing the punch like this. Yeah, Fran does it better than me. They're asking people to punch in and list their contacts and then send a message to people that they had been around if they were positive, to create a web of tracing. Here, that conversation, I don't know that conversation has been had at the central district health level or state level where they're charged with tracing. But it's one that I know that some communities, cities that have health districts in particular, or that oversee public health where we don't, are trying something like that. But it's a good idea. And we're seeing now the importance of strong tracing and isolating programs, which public health officials said from the beginning that when we were opening, we have to have tracing and isolating programs in place so that people know if they've been exposed. And while it's not a tech piece, the state has funded the county health district to beef up their program, and they have a larger team of people now that are at the ready and making phone calls to contacts and tracing those contacts throughout the day.
Thank you. This is a question that came in on YouTube. Amber is asking, how are you working to include people of color on your committees?
Amber, thanks for the question. You know, in our transition committees, we did actively seek members, people of color, members of communities that are traditionally underrepresented. We need to do more and do better in that space. I've proposed, and I do look at the makeup from a gender perspective as well as communities of color perspective of all of our city commissions. And we're encouraging people from diverse communities to apply for positions as they open, because we want to see our committees more reflective of the community in which we live. I would love suggestions from you and others on what more we can do. I've proposed that we fund, kind of picking up Councilwoman Sanchez's proposal from last year, that we fund diversity, equity, and inclusion training within city government so that we are doing our best to create welcoming professional places so that we can attract a diverse workforce, because I believe, and studies show, that the more diverse our commissions are, our committees are, but our workforce is, the better the ideas that we get. And it's something I'm committed to doing better on.
Great. And then similar, but a little bit different, a YouTube user has also asked, Mayor McLean, how are you including conservative voices and points of view in your administration?
So I'm, as I said when I came into office, that I believe listening to all voices was important. I did that throughout the campaign. There were conservative voices on my transition committees, and there remain conservative voices on various commissions throughout the city. And I often talk with those with whom, I shouldn't say with whom, of those who are of a conservative mindset, and hear their ideas as well. So in the same way that I'm trying to reach out, and it's an interesting place to be, because I reach out to one group and then the other group wishes I didn't. I reach out to another group, the other group wishes I didn't. And it's my role to reach out to everyone, to engage as many people so that I understand what people in this community want their community to be. And then I can make decisions accordingly on how best we serve the public that resides in our city.
Thank you. Claire from Southeast Boise is asking why 4th of July festivities were canceled, like the parade, but people are able to protest in large groups at the Capitol.
Hi, Claire. We did not cancel the parade. There was a parade, a pancake breakfast, and some other events that it's my understanding that the organizers themselves have canceled. And we are still looking at providing fireworks in a safe way, because 4th of July is an important day. It's a tradition for many to participate in. And our role on 4th of July has always been to provide fireworks or to help make that happen. And so we're maintaining that, but as long as we can, and we're working on a plan that Central District Health believes is appropriate to keep everyone safe.
Great. This is not a question. I just want to address real quick. We're getting some comments about background noise, and I just want to say it's not you, Mayor. I think it's the rally that's happening downstairs at the plaza at City Hall. So that's what it is for all the.
Yeah, if I can make a comment on that too. It is. There's probably 100 people or so downstairs. They're having a Black Lives Matter protest this evening, and they were here last night as well. And before our city council, I actually stepped out of City Hall. I had a 15-minute break And for about 10 minutes of that before I had to prep to run the meeting, stepped into the crowd and listened to the speakers. They're all back tonight. Many of them wanted to come in as part of the listening session. So to follow physical distancing and masking protocols, that's why I'll be headed out shortly, because I want to hear from them too.
Great. We were just getting some questions about that, so I wanted to make sure we address it. Recognizing that we have about 10 minutes left, I want to encourage just everybody that's watching virtually to submit your questions. We have a few more, but I'd like to, and I know you would too, Mayor, to address as many of them as possible. So the next one is from Sarah in downtown Boise. She's asking about the Hot Air Balloon Festival that we host in Morrison Park. Do we know if that'll still go on or if that may be canceled?
It's funny, I gave a funny look behind me because there's a Sarah that's right here in downtown Boise. And so that wasn't a funny look at your question, Sarah from downtown Boise. Thanks for asking it. I don't know the status of that. There are many events that are private events that, some in the fall that the organizers have already said will turn virtual or not happen until next year. Others that are still in planning mode. That's something that our city staff should find out from the clerk's department and provide you an answer with. And because I don't even know if there's a website related to the festival that I could direct you to, I'm sorry.
This may be a good segue into some questions we got ahead of time around stage 4 reopening and what that means for city services, and then what it means for the city effort. Is that something you speak to?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Can you speak to what it means for city services with some of them reopening, and then what it means for the city at large, like group gatherings, for example, is one people are asking about?
Sure. So so we are currently in stage 4. The governor said, or the state said, I can't remember who said, so I shouldn't attribute it to anybody, but in making the decision to move to stage 4, it was a close decision on whether or not we ought to. Ultimately, the state and the local health district moved us into stage 4. Here in the city, we require that the suggested protocols for businesses be followed and implemented by businesses. So for any business owner that's operating a business, you go to the Rebound Idaho page and there are protocols. And if you read those protocols, even as a resident, many of the things they suggested. And we are saying those have to happen here because we're more dense. We're an urban core economic center of the state. And our ultimate goal is to be able to have our economy open and keep it open by making sure that we don't get to a point where there's a surge in sickness that would mean that we'd have to backtrack and close businesses again because of the economic impact that has. So those protocols are required. We put a limit of 250 people on events. The city operations are as follows. Starting June 22nd, I think that's Monday, the June 22nd, we will open City Hall and City Hall West. City Hall will have regular business hours. City Hall West will have limited hours. City Hall West is where the fire and police departments are housed. But we're asking everyone, if you're doing business with the city, you've been doing it digitally or virtually for the last couple months, if you can still do that, please do, to minimize contact of people, but we will be back open. We're going to have through the summer virtual and hybrid virtual city council meetings and planning and zoning commission meetings, which means there'll be 2 council members and myself or the acting mayor at each council meeting on Tuesday nights so that we can separate and maintain the 6 feet distance between us. The public can join us, and we've set up the council chambers so that the seats are all spaced appropriately. We ask people coming into City Hall to wear masks, but then also we have the Zoom going so that people can testify, just watch if they want to just watch virtually so they don't have to come down to City Hall. So we're operating on the 2 platforms through the summer. On June 22nd, the zoo opens with limited capacity of people that can come through. So you have to get your ticket in advance so you have a time. And then there will be specific directional flows that you have to follow. We have more, let's see, the basketball courts are open now, the volleyball courts are open. And starting in July, you'll see that fields are available to rent for sports. Ice at the ice rink starts to become available to rent. and then some classes through Parks and Rec occur. So we're opening buildings right now, and then in July you'll see more programs open and facilities for recreation open.
Great. Cody from downtown Boise asks, what are your overall thoughts on 8th Street? What are some pros and cons with the closure?
Sure. On 8th Street, I guess I should say it's interesting to think about pros and cons. We wanted as a city to do whatever we could to support businesses as they're reopening by providing more space for businesses so that people can comfortably sit outside, be served, take advantage of restaurants. And we'd like to do this in other places. We have a giant list of businesses that have reached out to our staff to ask for help to do the same. And we're looking at parking places and right away and trying to figure out how we can do this to help businesses throughout the city so that in these summer months, people are comfortable frequenting an establishment, have more space to sit outside, and can support that establishment. And because we know also that it's better to be outside than inside. And that was our goal with 8th Street. I'd say that the pros are that, people have been outside. There's even been just pickup musicians and others on the street. I think about it as in terms of opening 8th Street to pedestrians rather than closing 8th Street. It's open in the morning for cars to do deliveries. I'd love to hear from businesses about what's working and what's not. They're often in contact with our economic development director, Sean Keithley, here at the city. I look at it and think there are more pros than cons. I wish it was aesthetically a little bit more appealing. That would probably be the biggest con for me. But we did this fast. We had to work with the state with regard to alcohol, with ACHD, the highway district, regarding the alleys, with the accessibility community to make sure that people with ADA accessibility needs are able to get in to each establishment and onto the sidewalk, but also know when the street that's open to people but closed to cars ends, and you're going to run into a street with cars. And so all of those people had to come together to come up with the plan that we've got right now. And I'd say too, just on that, in wrapping in the pros and cons piece, with COVID, we've had to try new things, adapt to a really tough situation, try new things that help us, in response to adaptation, recognize that some things work well, others don't, and then try again. And so our team here at the city is working closely with the business owners, the Downtown Boise Association, and others to try to tweak what's not working and make it better. And we're iterating and learning as we go because we wanted to do it so that we could support businesses where it's the one street in Boise that the city's in charge of. And so that's why we picked that place and could do it so quickly. But we wanted to see it as a model for, while we can't do the exact same thing other places, but a model for the idea of extending patios to create more outside place for people to enjoy.
Thank you. That actually answered a follow-up question that we got. So thank you for that. And being mindful of the time, we're right at 6:30. I know that there's some people downstairs, and for the questions that we still have unanswered on YouTube and the forum, and for those that wanted to ask questions, we will follow up in email. So apologies that we didn't get to them, but we will definitely follow up.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining this way. I'm sorry, this is the learning again of how we do hybrid listening sessions. Appreciate that you joined us and that you had questions. Love to hear your thoughts on some of the questions where you were wondering how we could do things differently. Feel free to send them and we'll get the answers to the rest of the questions as soon as possible. Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Lana, and the staff here at the City of Boise that made this possible this evening. And thanks to all of you that have joined us. Take care and be well.